are now entering the horror sanctum.
Ho, 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 Merry Christmas. Almost. Welcome back to the Horror Sanctum for our Christmas special. I'm Jay with John, Kellen, and TJ. If you tuned in to our last episode, then you already know which flick we chose to celebrate Christmas. We each chose two Christmas horror flicks, put them on a spinning wheel, and let fate decide. And it chose 2016's Better Watch Out. Directed by Chris Peckover. It's a movie about a boy and his babysitter who seemingly have to defend themselves during a home invasion, or so we think. Again, we say this each episode, but there are spoilers. If you haven't watched this movie and you don't want it spoiled, I suggest watching it and then coming back to visit with us. TJ, this was one of your choices, so I'm going to let you start things off.
Okay. Well, this is only like the second time I've watched this movie, but it left quite an impression when I watched it. Usually I have a whole lot of history and stuff, but I don't have a big history with this film, and I didn't look it up because we decided to watch it again like 3 days ago. So I'm just going with my personal history with Better Watch Out. Was, I believe it first debuted as a Shudder original. And this was when I first become aware of Shudder, because I used to start seeing these things that would say Shudder Originals when I would rent stuff at the Redbox. And so this is how I was first turned on to Shudder. When I rented at Redbox, I believe it come out in 2016, but I didn't rent until around the Christmas of 2017 when it was in the Redbox. And I remember it had really good reviews for a horror film, especially like a Christmas holiday horror film. And I couldn't get it anywhere. Like, I tried to rent it. It wasn't on Amazon to rent or anything. So Redbox was the only way I could get it. I should have just got a Shudder subscription, but I didn't really know what Shudder was 5 years ago. So now I do. Love it. Rent it. Get it. $6 a month. Awesome. But this movie wasn't at all what I thought it was, because I thought it was like a home invasion type thing, because that's what it was sold at as, with all the, the marketing and everything. And instantly I remember getting the creepy vibes from the kid and being like, okay, I'll go along with this. And then the movie keeps transforming into like a different subgenre the more you go. It like becomes at some point it's like, home invasion. It's almost like a Black Christmas type vibe. And then at some point it turns into like a weird twist on Home Alone. And then it's like a little bit funny games. And then it's like, it gets really out there the further you go with it. But I remember just being along for the ride. And it's a quick, they start into action pretty quickly. Like the first 10-15 minutes, you're 20 or so minutes in, babysitters, trying to protect the kids and running through the hallways, thinking somebody with shotguns walking around in the house. And then it's only 89 minutes. So it really just transitions very smoothly. And the further you go with this thing, the more this kid just gets creepier and creepier. And then you start to realize, and then you think it's like this big elaborate plan, but then you realize they've only kind of half-ass planned like maybe a third of it. And then they're just, this kid's full-on sociopath going psychopath and just letting his fantasies play out in evil genius way. I was just thinking about it. It's kind of like, Halloween Ends was big, lots of controversy what you think about Corey Cunningham. But imagine if Corey Cunningham was the kid in that movie and he didn't die. And this is how he would have grown up to be. That's kind of my mental exercise. It's like, yeah, totally, because it's a very, I mean, once he starts going full on crazy, I mean, he's just a precocious kid at first. It's maybe taking too many liberties with the babysitter, but once it starts going full on, it's like, oh, we're going there. Oh, we're going there. And then when he's knifing the babysitter in the throat, it's like, oh my God. Really?
That's what I love about it, is that steady progression, because like you said, it does start out and it feels like Black Christmas because there are phone calls.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of starts out with phone calls, and then a pizza man shows up, but no one ordered a pizza. Like, you can feel the entire time that something's off, but you're not sure what it is. And then when you think you know, they kind of switch it on you a little bit. It's definitely like the director. It's Black Christmas and Home Alone. Like, he obviously loves both those films. He's like, let's put these together with this little shit and see what we can come up with.
Yeah.
And I think this was my third time watching it. The first time I was like, this is great. The second time I was like, this is great. But this time I was like, this is really great. Like, I still loved it after the third watch. Like, the kid is annoying as shit. Like,
yes,
he comes off with this. Like, I didn't know toxic masculinity could really be that apparent at age 12, which I think is what he's supposed to be in the film. And privilege, like, he's so privileged. Like, the babysitter comes over, he's attracted, he's hitting puberty, which we'll get into his voice later, I'm sure. But he's like, I have hospice babysitter, I have this plan, I'm going to execute it tonight. I'm going to, this 12-year-old's going to get laid by this, 16, 17-year-old. Like, it seems harmless enough. It's almost like a campy 80s, coming of age movie. And then they just keep turning that script on you, and it's great.
Yeah, I agree. I love
it. Right. And when you watch it over again and you watch that beginning, it kind of clues you into what's coming. Like, when the two kids are talking in the bed, there's hints, like, it's foreshadowing. Mm-hmm. We don't pay attention because we're like, this is just a conversation they're having, but the conversation is meaningful and it plays into everything else. I think we've all been very anxious to hear what John has to say. It's quite possibly the only person who didn't like this movie.
But before we get into that, though, I have one question, because you just made me think of it. So the one thing that didn't make sense to me after rewatching again is, if the kids ordered the pizza, why would they have ordered it with the mushrooms that they obviously don't like on it? That don't make any sense.
The only thing I can think of, I thought about that too, and I don't know if it's because the friend, Tyler, was that his name? He just didn't know. I think that the main kid, Luke, kind of slipped up by saying he doesn't like mushrooms. I think that kind of slipped him up. Okay. He said that, why are there mushrooms on this pizza? At first I thought maybe that's how he's going to drug her or something of that nature, because he picks his off.
Yeah.
That doesn't really make sense either. But I think the friend ordered that pizza and he just...
That makes sense. That makes sense. Okay.
John?
So, this is my second watch for this. I think I watched this last year, maybe. It was either last year or 2020 Christmas. First time I saw this, I hated it. I just thought it was like, I was just so unbelievably opposed to this movie. I don't know why. I just didn't like it. And so I watched it again, and I was kind of able to separate out a little bit more of how the fact that I probably don't love the movie versus is it a good film. And I definitely had a little bit of a different opinion on it the second time around. The main kid is really good. He's very unlikable. He plays that evil psychotic kid role great. I think when he makes mistakes in the movie, it actually adds to it, because in a way, him being so young and crazy, he's going to have hormones and all those things happening to him. So he's going to make mistakes. And I think it actually is good the way he plays it, like how he sometimes slips in between a plan and sort of just being emotional. I think that works really well. The main girl, the babysitter, she is not a bad actress usually. I didn't like her here. Um, I felt like that there was just a lot of things she did in the movie that were there was a lot of script convenience with her, and I know it's a horror movie, but there was just a lot of things she did that were just like eye rolling to me, like the whole thing where she's tied up and she's trying to get loose, and they have the boyfriend tied up and they're throwing the can down. I'm just like, I counted it. I'm like, she had time to like uncut herself loose, re-tie herself back up, cut herself loose again, and it's just, and then the whole thing with, I found myself reliving, like, if you guys remember in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles when they're watching the cartoon in the first movie, and he's like, "Ninja kick the damn rabbit." Like, that's what I kept saying to myself when like the kids were like running around and she was trying, and she was like, she pulled the gun out. I was just like, come on, like they're still 12-year-olds. Like, I think it wouldn't be that hard to, incapacitate some 12-year-olds. But I mean, I do think there's a lot of really good things about this movie, though. It's shot very well, it's very pretty. The acting is really good. Even though I don't like the way the lead girl acted in the movie, her acting was fine. I just don't like the way they wrote her, if that makes sense. She
What
did a good job, though.
what else have you seen her in, John?
Elvis.
Oh,
Which
she's in the
I-
She was in
Elvis
the visit
movie.
also with the friend. They were the kids in the visit.
Oh, you're
Her and
right.
the
She
friend,
was.
yeah.
Oh,
They
yeah.
were siblings in the visit. M. Night Shyamalan.
But like there was one thing I remember she said, when they were upstairs and there was still the whole ruse about the home invasion, and she goes, "Oh yeah, can you crack the password? Can you do like a techno thingy?" And then a minute later she's like, "Where's the security panel and the security system?" I'm like, okay, so you wrote her to be kind of smart, but you also wrote her to be kind of dumb. And I just, some of those type, and that's probably nitpicking. I may be nitpicking the script because it is a horror movie. I know that. I just, there were little things like that that still sort of like jump out at me as I watch the movie. But it's shot well. The acting is good. Um, it's got David Putty from Seinfeld in it, so that's a star for me.
And
I
Virginia
love
Madsen.
Putty.
You know, him and
Yeah.
Elaine broke up again. It's crazy.
But yeah, I did think it was. I will say probably my favorite character was the boyfriend who had to write the apology.
Yeah.
I thought he looked like, I don't know why, when I saw him, something about the hat and all. He just reminded me of like Jamie Kennedy from Malibu's Most Wanted. The whole getup.
That was Billy from Stranger Things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought he was. I liked his role. I thought that was really funny.
Yeah, he was probably my second favorite part of the entire film. And like you said, like it's shot and directed beautifully. Like
Yeah.
it's really well done. I want a sequel.
I
And
just
want a
realized
sequel,
that was
Halloween 2
Billy.
style. What's that?
I didn't know that was Billy.
Yeah.
He looked different.
Billy. But the way the movie ends gives them the opportunity to make a sequel, and I want it to be Halloween 2. I want it to be the exact same thing as Halloween 2. Like he did Black Christmas Home Alone. Let's do Halloween 2 as something else where the kid goes to the hospital and he's trying to get her, kill her for good. But yeah, everything John said, you're right. Except the nitpicky stuff, I agree with that. It's kind of like I'm watching a movie with Lindsay and someone's like, we're watching The Walking Dead and someone's trying to shoot someone, they can't hit him. She's like, this is so, I can't believe, like, it doesn't make any sense. I'm like, it's zombies. Like, that's just the way it is.
Sure.
Granted, there's no supernatural here, but we don't really know how we would react in situations like that. The part where she's like, do your wizard techno stuff on the computer, that made me like get off my lawn. Like she just seemed like an older person that doesn't know how to do anything. Like, dude, get on the computer and hack it.
Well,
That
to
was a
be
little
fair, she is blonde.
One thing I did notice that, and it's not really just this movie, but I've kind of made a mental note of this for a while, is when they are keeping up the ruse of the home invasion and they're looking at each other and they hear the noise upstairs and she goes in the other room and him and the best friend look at each other and like, what was that? I always think to myself in those situations when they're writing these films, like, okay, these two characters who are in on something are responding to each other by themselves when the victim is not near them. So you can argue they're just selling the situation, but you can also argue, was that just like a weird writing thing where I mean, that's odd to me. It's almost like, I don't know when they're writing that if they're thinking a certain way, or because if I was writing this script, I would be writing it like, okay, I know the entire motivation here, so I'm going to act like this character's real motivation and just hide it, right? Does that make sense what I'm saying? I
Yeah.
don't. Maybe I'm just nitpicking. That's something I've noticed.
No,
in
it makes
movies.
sense, but also who threw the brick through the window? Like who was making the noises when they were all in the house together? That kind of
That's
bothered me to a degree too, because there are some things that happen that doesn't make sense as far as where the characters are in the home. And like I know outside he had stuff set up with wires, tripwires, and everything, but there's nothing upstairs to trip.
Yeah,
Like,
I assumed that there was some like timed, like throwing a brick, Home Alone type situation
he was
out
at like
there.
a catapult in the backyard.
Yeah, a little capo.
Yeah, that was a little. That was after watching it for the third time. I'm like, who made that noise? Who's breaking that glass? Kellen, buddy.
Oh, I guess I'm alone in not liking this movie. First, I'm going to start by saying what a gross misuse of Patrick Warburton and Darcy Montgomery. Two
Right?
incredible actors and relegated to mediocre roles. I mean, granted, Darcy Montgomery's character was great for the brief amount of time that we got him, but I kept expecting like a Die Hard situation where he comes back at the end, like when he strung up the one German guy or Austrian guy and he's, got the chain around his neck and then he pops up at the end. I kept expecting that, but no, it just rides off on his lawnmower. He's dead. What was even the point of bringing him into the movie other than to further signify that the kid that obviously looks psychotic is psychotic? I don't necessarily agree with TJ, what he said about, planned about a third of it and then the rest of it was winging. I think that kid had all of that planned. I think there was probably things that he couldn't plan for.
Yeah.
The boyfriend showing up with the flowers and things. But I think ultimately he had that whole night planned, especially when he told the babysitter when she asked him, you were never going to let me go. Mm-hmm. And he said, bingo. Like he obviously had that night planned out.
Yeah, I don't think he planned to kill his friend.
No,
or the baby.
I think he had a majority of it planned out too. And what really sold that for me is when he gets in bed at the end and then he's like, oh shit, and he gets under his bed and turns that heartbeat thing on. He had that down to a T. He's like, if this isn't on, they're going to know something's up. I think he wrote that down. He had his battle plan laid out.
Yeah, and he made the comment, they had that discussion, him and his best friend, about him, how he's gotten out. He's the master of getting out of things. So, yeah, I think this is his ultimate plan, was this night of murder and mischief. Great casting, by the way, to pick a kid that literally looked psychotic. Like, definitely. I absolutely could believe that kid, nothing against the actor, I apologize that your face is that way, but he looks like he would tie up a babysitter and murder her.
He played Peter Pan a year before that in the Pan movie with Hugh Jackman that just bombed totally.
I didn't know that. Wow.
Maybe that's what drove him to kill.
Maybe.
But it's not a bad movie. I don't want to say that. I get what they were trying to do. It's kind of like a mashup of, Ferris Bueller and Home Alone and what was that? Does anybody remember that movie with Dennis Leary?
Oh, yeah.
Where he kidnaps the family.
The Ref.
The Ref, yeah. Kind of a little bit of that, except, instead of him being, a good person in a bad situation, this is a bad person creating a bad situation. My biggest problem with the movie was all of the bad decisions. It just, at some point you find yourself yelling at the screen like, oh my God, at one point make the right call. Like you said, she's taped to this chair, almost has herself cut free. Obviously there's a scene where the tape on the chair is dangling as she's pretending to be there. This kid that's a mastermind doesn't notice the flailing piece of tape. But all of the poor decisions, it's just like at some point, you have to get something right. And it was just like time after time, it just became more and more frustrating to me because one, I hated that kid. I could not wait for him to get his comeuppance, and to think that he wasn't up until the very end was infuriating. Granted, that finale was very satisfying.
Yeah.
As they're wheeling her into the ambulance. And I was waiting for that when there's someone still alive, and the look on the kid's face, and then when he's looking out the window,
great.
When he's watching her getting wheeled in, and she opens her eyes and looks at him and slowly raises the finger, like, got you. That was satisfying. That made up for a lot of the transgressions in the film. But like I said, it was just, it's not a bad movie. It's just such a frustrating watch. Because, you go back to Halloween, or you go back to some of these other movies, and all the mistakes that they made are in the heat of the moment.
Sure.
She's had time to think. Yeah. She's been tied up the majority of the night. She could have at some point come up with some reasonable plan, or done something. Even when she was downstairs and the paint can scene, she's got the gun. The friend probably doesn't know that it's not loaded. He might, but obviously the kid throwing the paint bucket knows, the psycho. Leave the house. Why are you still there? You just watched him murder somebody and laugh about it. You know that he's capable of doing far worse if he's laughing about somebody's head exploding.
Do you know
leave
how
the house?
You know how I explain kind of like the bad decisions, especially in the second half of the movie, though, is she gets hit in the head and knocked unconscious with the baseball bat. So she's probably concussed. And if you notice, she makes a lot better decisions, and like she's trying to protect the kids on the front end and makes a lot worse decisions on the back end.
But she even said you need to call. But she even says you need to call. I need to go to the hospital. I think I have a concussion. So she has enough wherewithal to say, hey, I think I have a concussion. I feel like she would have enough wherewithal once she got loose to just be gone. I mean, she hopped a fence. She's obviously not physically incapable at that point.
True.
So like I said, it's not a bad movie. And like you said, the visuals, they do a really good job of making a horror Christmas film, because even with all of the craziness going on, it still feels festive. I mean, even to the point where she's tied up with the lights, or at the end when he's on the roof, and parents are coming home and he knocks over the reindeer and he has to pick it. That part reminded me of the Ferris Bueller, where he's scrambling to get into the bed before the parents can come in. It was a good touch for him to be laying in the bed and you to hear the mother start to scream.
Yeah.
So there's definitely aspects of this movie to that, they did well. It's just, for me, like I said, on the whole, it's just such a frustrating watch. It's just, I kept waiting for, she dated two obviously douchebag guys. The one with the hole in his cheek seemed to be a little better of a person, but Darcy Montgomery's character obviously has probably been in a fight or two, and this 12-year-old kid just straight owned him. It was just, like I said, for me, it's just a frustrating watch. It wasn't a bad movie. It's shot well. It's the score is good. The acting for what they're required to do is good. That kid, like I said, makes you really hate him from the moment you realize that he's the perpetrator of what's to come that night. But yeah, it just never really got me over that hump. Once I was settled in, and maybe it'll be like John. If I watch it again in a year or two, I'll feel differently about it because I've gotten the frustration out and I know what happened, so I can watch it more objectively. But yeah, that's my biggest issue with the movie. It was just the whole time I'm screaming at the TV.
Another reason why I think he had everything planned out is the people singing outside. Like, he knows, he's like, I need to go out there. They know I'm here. Pretend everything's fine. Like, that's almost like an alibi right there. Like, the carolers are out there. I came out. They saw me. He definitely, and you do hate him from the beginning. It's just the voice for me. And then we see the bad things he does, but that voice is just so annoying. Like, I'd rather listen to like an all feline Florida Georgia Line cover band than hear that kid's voice. But at the same time, it was perfect because of what he was trying to accomplish. Him going through puberty and being squeaky like that is like the perfect voice that he needed to have. So yeah, but you do want him to die from the get-go.
Yeah, my only thing, the ending, I did leave myself thinking, how is she going to convince them that this kid did all that? Right. Because he did a good job of getting rid of enough of the evidence and
covering his tracks.
So the only thing I can see is maybe if there's a hole in his, if part of what he tried to cover revolved around the girl saying certain things, But again, I'm like, it's going to be a 12-year-old boy versus this girl that they're probably going to think, oh, she's just traumatized about what happened. I mean, how could a 12-year-old be this
and
callous
has
and
a
cold?
concussion too?
Yeah.
Is this a movie?
I could actually see a second one being better if it was like, her going after him.
Yeah,
Like
well,
him
you could
not
make it
knowing
like the people not believing the girl type thing.
Yeah.
Like play on that whole why don't you believe me type thing, and then
and it could be the same night. She could leave the hospital just in a fit of frustration because he didn't believe her. The police officer, whatever, nurses don't believe her, so she leaves the hospital and she goes after this kid.
Of course, now the kid's
Fan
19
fiction.
and like 6 feet tall, so be a little less believable.
Move it in the future. Maybe she went into coma.
You know what the most unbelievable part of the
idea.
entire film for me, the most unbelievable part is having an attractive babysitter. I always had my grandmother. I never had attractive.
Well, why would they need a babysitter anyway? I mean, he's at that point, he's obviously
he
old
did
enough because he sleepwalks. I mean, geez, don't leave your kid.
Even that was a cover. Like he had that cover. He's been working that angle forever. I sleepwalk. Yeah. That's why I steal money from my mommy's purse. He's a smart little shit.
Yeah.
Well, he knew about the pencil. He knew about the pencil on the doorknob. So yeah, he had everything worked out. Like I said, obviously there was kinks in the plan, stuff you can't plan for. But yeah, I think he had a Kevin McAllister level plan for that night.
Yeah, did the movie need to be shot during Christmas though? That's one thing I kept thinking about. It's like if you take this movie, like most Christmas horror movies, there's a reason for Christmas. Like Black Christmas, they're on break. A Silent Night, Deadly Night. Like this movie, I'm sitting there watching it, and I'm like, this movie could be in summer. It could be. It's like I didn't have a problem with it being during Christmas, but at the end of it, I don't know why I watched it, and I was like, why was this during Christmas? And maybe I forgot. Was there like something they used that was a plot for that?
No, but I'll see your point, and I'll raise you blood rage. There's no reason for blood rage.
Exactly.
It's true. Like this was someone, like I'm telling you, he loved Home Alone and he loved Black Christmas, and he's like, I want to make a movie. That's probably the main reason it's set during Christmas.
That's not cranberry Sprite.
Right.
Well, and just to stir the pot for any of our listeners, that's absolutely why Die Hard was at Christmas and is a Christmas movie, because that movie does not happen without Christmas.
That's because they're going to the Christmas party. Yeah.
Well,
no argument.
Look,
that's true.
Die Hard doesn't happen if it's not Christmas. Why? Because 90% of the employees are out of the building. And what other time of year are you going to have that low of staffing, that low of security, and have the CEO, owner of the company, in the building other than a company Christmas party? You have all the high-level executives that are going to be there because it's a company Christmas party. They have to be there, and you're going to have the best opportunity. I know. I'm just saying, if we're talking about why movies at Christmas, I just want to make everybody. I want to piss off half the audience by pointing out.
You tell how passionate he is about Die Hard.
I'm there with you on Die Hard.
I did feel really bad for the best friend though when he got shot. That was, I don't know why, that was one part of the movie, like when the best friend gets shot and he's like dying, and I think he says mommy, like that was like, yeah, that was sad.
Rough.
Like, yeah,
minus the mommy, that was my favorite kill though.
That was your favorite kill. That's our next point.
It was unexpected.
It was hysterical too, because when he shoots him, the kid just goes flying. Like I literally audibly laughed when all of a sudden, and the kid just he got yanked across the room.
Well, he weighs like 80 pounds. So,
so Christmas.
Well, he was
Die Hard is a Christmas movie, and Kellen likes seeing kids get shot across rooms. That was a good kill. The paint can was number one for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's because in Home Alone, because they're talking about it in the beginning. They're like, no, the teacher, whoever said it would obliterate somebody. So
they foreshadow.
It's coming, and then it comes. And my favorite part was when it shows the floor afterwards, and you just see the paint spread out in like a V shape.
You know what's funny?
Dude's head was.
Well, and that's another beautifully shot scene too. Mm-hmm. Instead of showing the head explode, you show the aftermath. You see the paint everywhere, and then you see the red start to mix with the yellow paint. Yeah, that was well done.
In my mind, from when I first watched it, I remember the head exploding and seeing it, and I was surprised when I saw it and they didn't show it. and I was shocked. Like in my mind's eye, I saw the picture, and that's
we're
just the
putting
beauty of
together.
editing.
We're filling in those blanks in our head.
It's like Texas Chainsaw Massacre when they put the girl on the hook. They don't actually show her be put on the hook.
There's like hardly any blood in Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah.
All right, so what was your favorite kill, Teach?
Oh, definitely the paintball. I paint can. Yeah,
John.
Probably. I mean, I would say the paint can was the best. Although one thing I did notice with that, and I see, this is my problem, is I'm so like literal and logical with these things. I'm like, when I saw the paint can come down, my first thought, going back to like physics class and stuff, was, would that happen? Like, even if a paint can, like, it's gonna kill you, but it's not gonna bust your head open like a watermelon. But it is a horror movie, so it is the coolest kill. Absolutely, I want to say there's a
video. I want to say there's a video on YouTube where they did it with a ballistics dummy, and it wrecked that dummy's head.
Really?
The weight of that paint can coming down.
Well, acceleration.
I don't know that his head exploded, but yeah, it showed. Just like in Home Alone, they recreated Home Alone, and it wrecked that dummy.
Well, those cans weigh like 10 or 15 pounds, and then velocity and carrying it. I mean, it's like
I feel like though it would have knocked him back. I think it would have knocked him back more than just smashed his head. Yeah. I think it would have flipped him over.
Yeah.
We can do like YouTube videos testing. I'll be the dummy, and you guys can throw paint.
What I liked about the paint can thing, probably the best, was the anticipation. Like he misses first, right? Yeah. And then you have that, then you know what's happening. And you're like, oh, he's going to do this until he gets it. Is he going to get the next time? Is he going to miss again? It's like,
it was a smart way to show how crazy he was because of how excited he was that guy's head exploded. That was the moment where you realize, okay, this kid is really messed up.
Yeah. Definitely. He was happy that he proved his friend wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. It wasn't even about the death. It was about being like, I told you. See?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. So that's going to do it for our last episode of 2022.
Wait, what's our personal rankings though?
What's that?
What's our personal rankings?
Personal rankings. So since I've ruined that, I'll go first. I gave it 4. I gave it 4 when I watched it the first time, and nothing's changed for me, despite John's attempts to use physics and science against it. I still gave it 4 just because it's fun. It's 89 minutes, which is that sweet spot. Like, that's perfect. And again, you hate that kid, but that's acting, and that's getting a reaction, which is what he's supposed to do. It looks great. I gave it 4 candy canes out of 5.
Candy cane.
Kellen?
So, like I said, I didn't hate it. I just didn't love it. So I'll give it 3. Yeah, 3 out of 5.
TJ?
I'm kind of on the fence between 3.5 and 4, but I think on rewatching it, I think it still held up for me. And even though I knew what was coming, then I was looking for seeing all the little pieces maybe that I didn't know, and like what Jay was saying. So I think it's a 4 out of 5. Similar to Kellen, I hated this kid the whole way, and I was like, when are we going to get relief? And I feel like the ending totally redeems it.
Yeah.
Like, without that ending.
Do it for our rankings.
John?
Sorry, John.
I would say, when I first saw it, it would have been low. But after watching it, thinking about it, kind of considering all the aspects of it, honestly, overall as a movie, recommendation-wise, probably like 3.5 or 4 out of 5. Probably 3.5 because it is a really good movie. I don't see myself watching it a lot, but I think 3.5 out of 5 for sure because it's well done. I can't deny that. So
yeah, we've been pretty even on that one. I'm surprised you built it up like you were going to hate it.
No, I was softer this time.
You convinced us it was a home invasion movie when it wasn't. All right, so that's going to do it for our last episode of 2022. But before we go, let's see what movie we're going to kick off the new year with. So the way we were doing it with a trivia question, it would just get sloppy. So we all wrote down 20 movies, typed them out, put them in a McDonald's bucket,
And we don't know
We're
what
gonna draw.
movies are in there except the ones that we chose.
Right. Not just mine, although it should be. Everybody picked 20 movies, so there's 80 movies. There's a little bit more than that in here. But so let's see what the first movie is going to be. No, I'm not looking. Right. The first film of 2023, if we make it. Theater of Blood.
Yeah.
It's got to be TJ.
Vincent Price, classic. That's a TJ pick.
1971.
1971. I love Vincent Price.
Get to watch my first Vincent Price film.
Either, so
it's a good first Vincent Price film. If you hadn't seen Vincent Price, this is in his glorious, I'm already getting old and I'm just going to just totally ham it up days. So.
Nice. All right, so we will start the new year off with the Vincent Price 70s Classic. So be sure to follow us on Instagram, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and subscribe to wherever you're listening to us now. That would be swell. And because it's the season of giving, please go give us a share or two with all your friends. Bring them into our flock so they can listen to us too. We hope you guys have a fantastic holiday. Hope you don't get visited by Krampus, but if you do, please take a selfie, send it to us. And so that's it. Signing off for the year. I'm Jay with John, Kellen, and TJ. And until next year,
keep it spooky, guys.